Hello, I am Matt Williamson at Williamson NFL. And as mentioned, this is a weird day because tomorrow's the trade deadline. I'm recording this on the eve of the trade deadline. And of course, if the Steelers do anything, I will respond. And frankly, if there's big trades in the league, I'm sure I'll mention on tomorrow's pod no matter what. And the Steelers are coming off their bye and getting back on the practice field. And the practice today, Monday, is kind of like a JV light practice, getting back into swing of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give us mid-season takes on every position group. And here's how I decided to do it. Are the Steelers tight end, O-line, safeties, whatever, are they in the top third of the league, the bottom third of the league, or the middle of the league? I know there's 32 teams, not 31. But basically, are you in the top 10 or 11? Are you in the bottom 10 or 11? Or are you right in the middle? Let's start with offense. Quarterback. I'm going to say they're in the middle third. Again, I have to pick one of three categories. But I think they're knocking on the door, at least, to be in the top third. Not the top 5, not the top 8. But I don't think it's inconceivable. And I am putting weight on you have a really good number 2. Now, I'd rather have Mahomes or Allen than a good pairing, of course. But I think Wilson has spent clearly the majority of his career in the top third. Probably was either at the bottom of the middle third or the top of the bottom third in his stint in Denver. But I think now the quarterback room is easily 16th or 17th, if not better. So I think you're knocking on the door to be top 10 to 13. But we're going to say middle for the quarterback. It's a lot better than Ben, that's for sure. I mean, since it's been 5 years probably since we could even say middle. And so that's an upgrade over recent years. And trending the right direction to maybe even be a top third. I feel very strongly that the running back room is top third. Now, is Najee a top 10 back? I'll still say no, but I think he's been better than he ever has been and now is actually in that conversation. And frankly, I feel like we've seen nothing from, not nothing, but a fraction of what Patterson and especially Warren have proven to be capable of. So again, I am doing this I'm recording it on November 4th, Monday. How do I feel about them right now? Not what they are going to be or what their performance is to date. I'm comparing them to the rest of the league now. Clearly the top third. Just as clearly, the wide receivers are in the bottom third. Pickens has developed even better than I ever thought and is a real star. The rest of the group is below the line compared to the rest of the league. I don't think any of you are going to fight me that this is a bottom third wide receiver room top to bottom. Tight end. They employ 4 of them, which is rare. Some teams only barely use their number 1. Most only use 2. I still think Freiermuth is underutilized, but I'm really liking Darnell Washington. I'm going to say because the depth and variety and what Freiermuth can be, has been, is, I'm going to say top third in terms of tight end units around the league. But it's definitely at the very bottom of that. If you told me this is a middle tier, but at the top of it, I wouldn't fight you on it. O-line's really difficult because I am now going to operate with the understanding that Frazier is the center. Not that McCollum was bad. Frazier and Dan Moore have been your best linemen all year. Siamalu's been strong. I think you found something in McCormick. Right tackle's a problem, and it doesn't seem like it's getting necessarily better. And depth worries me, and that's been tested. So I am not putting Fautanu or Daniels is part of this equation at all, because again, on November 4th, they're no help to me at all. But I will say this is a middle tier. This is not a bottom third. Why do I say that? Because there's some hideous lines in the league. I promise you I could come up with 10 that are noticeably worse. And there's 5 that are embarrassing. So this is a middle tier unit. Maybe it's ascending. Certainly getting Frazier back is helpful. But we're going to call them the middle third. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the NFL to college, Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE, capital BLEAV, and get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Over to the defense. Now we're going to go to special teams first. We're just going to call special teams a unit in itself. Not only is it tier 1, it might be number 1. You might have the best kicker in the league. I think it's him and Boz and Osbury at this point. The kick block stuff is incredible. Rare. And one of the fat punters been at least middle tier, where I thought you'd go from a tier 1 punter in Johnston to a tier 3 punter for sure. Hasn't happened. And what's exciting, and this might come into play for sure this week. Side note, Washington allows teams to return kicks at a higher rate than any in the league, and Patterson is back. We have no clue what the kick return unit is like. But you might have the best kick returner of all time to go with Jaylen Warren. I think it's going to be a strength that's still untapped. And teams are not even letting the Steelers try that. Will they with Patterson going forward? The weather will help. Not everyone can just boom it through the back of the end zone. And Washington's kicker does not have a big leg and does not have a very high touchback percentage at all. So this is not only a tier 1 unit, it might be the number 1 unit. Special teams. D-line. Just the big people, not the defensive front. Cam, Benton, Ogunjobi. Cam's been as good, honestly, as anyone in the league at his position. I know Dexter Lawrence is a nose, but if we talk about interior defensive tackles, the 3 best players this year have been Cam Hayward, Dexter Lawrence, and Chris Jones. There's other great ones, don't get me wrong, Quinnen Williams, etc. So that carries a lot of weight in this conversation. And spoiler alert, I think the Steelers' defensive front is still the best in the league. But I'm going to be a little harsh on the D-line and put them at the top of tier 2. Run defense is worrisome. Ogunjobi's too up and down. Benton is really exciting and a very good pass rusher. I don't know if he's a nose. I don't know that he's developed enough as an every down run player. Depth is okay, but Adams isn't in the mix right now. That even might be enough for me to put him in tier 1, but he's not there. Lowry's been a little underwhelming. I'm not a big Loudermilk guy. So we're going to call that a tier 2 group, which I know is a bit of a slap in the face to Hayward. But that's where we're at. I'm not sold that if there's a defensive tackle available in these next 24 hours, you shouldn't at least kick the tires on them. And spoiler alert, this is a very, very good defensive tackle draft class coming up. Steelers' first pick might be a defensive tackle. So we're going to go tier 2 there. Middle third. The edge guys are crazy. I mean, it's obviously tier 1. I am going to count Herbig in that mix. He should be back for this game. They might be number 1. Would you trade this edge group top to bottom for any in the league today? Probably not. So easy one there. I thought the off the ball linebackers would be a tier 1 group after being a tier 3 group really since Shazier. I can't quite give it to him yet. Now, linebacker play across the league isn't stellar. So if I really broke down 32 teams, maybe they would end up in the top 11. Maybe, but it would be like 9 at best, So I'm going to call them a middle tier group. Certainly with potential to get into tier 1. Queen seems to be getting a little better each week, and I think the bye week's good for him. I think Wilson's going to be a real good player. We know what Roberts is. I'm obviously not factoring Holcomb here, but is there any chance he returns this year? I don't think that's totally out of question. So it's a good group. I would call it above average, but for this exercise, if you're either tier 1, 2, or 3, I think they have to be tier 2. Safety. Many of you might disagree with me, but this is a tier 1 safety group. And why you might disagree is Minka's having a terrible year. He doesn't make any plays. He doesn't have a pick 6 every week. I still think he might be the best safety in the league. Now, there's a couple others that have come on like gangbusters. Winfield, Hamilton with the Ravens. And there's some others that are really, really impressive. But he can hang with all of them. I like the depth that all of a sudden you have KZ and Edmonds. There was a time when they were like basically your starters. But they're your they're your backups. And Elliott's really good. Wasn't Elliott's best game last time we saw him, but he's really good. That's a really good pairing with some depth. Maybe some big nickel should come into play here going forward. So that is a tier 1 safety group. Corner's really hard for me because I'm not going to count Trice, but I think he's coming back soon. I am going to count Sutton because he is back. So Sutton is now my nickel / number 3. Beanie Bishop has done some good things lately, but he's probably going to get relegated to the bench or to some kind of dime package. Good. That's what you want. I think Porter is probably a top 10 corner right now. I don't think he's Sauce or Surtain, who I think is the best, Stingley. But I think he's trending that direction, and he's asked to do as difficult a stuff as anybody in the league, although they do play a lot of cover 3. A lot. Jackson has been a very pleasant overall addition, but I don't think he was playing his best when we saw him last. So this is another one that's borderline, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt with Sutton's return and say it's a tier 1 group of corners. I don't think that's being too generous. It's a good group. Their ability against the run is not tier 1, but it's better than it was last year. Everything's better than it was last year, corner, when you were playing Wallace and Peterson and old slow guys. So let me know what you think. All in all, pretty strong roster. Might they add a defensive tackle presence? Nose tackle type? Might they add a receiver? That's really the only spots I could see them doing something until we speak again. So there you have it. And obviously those tiers might go up with the right names. All right. See you guys later.